Welcome back to the M.a.N podcast. Muscles and Nonsense. I am Thomas, lead speaker, and I guess lead listener. I don't talk too much in this. I have just recorded the previous podcast that I've put up the week before this one. So if you think I'm just wearing the same clothes and my hair looks exactly the same, it's because it was like half an hour ago. I have a very good friend of mine. I would definitely say he's probably one of my best friends. We met a long time ago, and you'll be able to tell pretty quickly that Dominic is not from Scotland. Dominic, you are one of the most interesting human beings I think I've ever met in my life, and I am excited to let the world meet you and hear the some of the stuff that we got up to when I was in Indiana. So, Dominic, if you could just give us a little introduction on yourself, who you are. Maybe even you want to talk a little bit about how we met, and then we're just gonna catch up. So if anybody doesn't want to hear what me and Dominic talk to each other about, go away now.
Yeah. So my name is Dominic Beeson. I live on the south side of Indianapolis in Indiana, in the United States. I'm the youngest of 15 children. In my family there's 10 boys, 5 girls, all from the same parents. Raised kind of traditional. My parents were very traditional Catholics in the south side of Indiana. So they were old school. They didn't believe in birth control, and so they just kept having kids. And then after growing up in Beech Grove, that came with a pretty interesting childhood. So in my family there's like different generations. The oldest were born in 1972. I was born in 1989. So my oldest siblings are more like my aunts and uncles, and when it comes to generations, the youngest 5 are all boys. So that's kind of who I grew up with. So that came with a lot of fights, a lot of dog eat dog kind of lifestyle. But it was fun. Our house was the place to be. It was never boring. We went to Beech Grove. We lived in Beech Grove, which is on the south side of Indianapolis. My dad worked for Indiana Bell, which became AT&T. That's how he was able to afford to raise us all in a normal way. So thank God for that. And then after a while, my dad retired and moved down he built a house on a river in Flat Rock, Indiana. And all my siblings went to Beech Grove, and being the youngest and my dad retired, I was the only one that went to a new school. So went to a tiny school called Southwestern Junior Senior High School. That's where Thomas and my paths crossed when he was a foreign exchange student. I believe that was my junior year. You were a senior, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that would have been in 2006, 2007 school year. So that's when we first got to know each other. We didn't know each other right away. I know he was a real athletic guy coming to trying to show up the basketball team. Guy with the fancy accent all the girls wanted to hang out with. But after a while, I think it was the summer after you graduated when we started really hanging out more. Just out in the country. So living in Flat Rock, it's country. It's Indiana. It's about 30 minutes south of Indianapolis. He lived with the Blackburns, which they hosted many foreign exchange students. So I was familiar with the area, and we just kind of started hanging out and started doing our shenanigans, running around the back roads of Shelby County, Indiana. Fucking about, doing random stuff, chasing girls, trying to get a good buzz when we could.
Yep. Hey, do you know what's funny? I think the funniest thing is you used to always speak when we were in school. You were always like when I would speak, you'd be right on. You'd be like, accent's cool. You seem you were always you seem like an alright guy, and you always seemed like an alright guy to me. But it seemed like you were just doing your own thing, and I was like, all right. Turns out that you were the only person that actually ended up living near me in the whole school.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing about Southwestern is it's Shelby. It's like the middle of Shelby County, so everybody, it was so spread out, and like it took us, 15-minute drive going 50 mile an hour, so it was a good distance away. And I remember in Beech Grove having like freedom was being able to ride your bike because it was very much more urban. Like I had total freedom to hang out with my friends, but I moved my 8th grade to freshman year to Flat Rock, living on the river. So I was pretty locked in there before I got my license. Like I felt like I was pretty isolated. I didn't have any friends. Starting a new school my freshman year, it was a pretty big culture shock. And so I didn't have I wasn't in the cliques of that small school right away. So that was kind of, it was a pretty scary moment as anything new, especially in adolescence. But as I got my license and got more freedom, I was able to, make more friends a little easier. And then, having a big family helped a lot. My brothers would come down. It's basically who I hung out with from my first 2 years living down there, and my neighbors, whoever, how there's a couple of people living next to me in that little section we lived in. But yeah, once I got my license and we were able to hang out, I was fortunate enough to my parents, built that separate house, so I would host a lot of big parties, and we'd get some girls over, or get all of our buddies would hang out, and it'd be really fun. We did a lot of fun stuff down there, a lot of shenanigans, big fires, and
all sorts of craziness. I think one of the nice things though for me, like coming over to there, is like I had like the huge culture shock of coming from Scotland to America. You had the culture shock of coming from like an urban place to like real country place. So I think we had this like common ground of like a lot of things were new for us both. Like you obviously were way more street smart than me from coming from there, especially because your brother lived in Indianapolis, David, when I was there.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas, he lived...
One of several brothers, but yeah.
Yeah. Like, they all lived, and they were kind of like fine for us to come visit. And it was almost like a stop-off point for us to find other shenanigans, as you keep saying, to like get ourselves into.
Yeah, I mean that's what those years were about. When I think back at it, is so whenever I got my license, I would tag along and like, let's go up to Indy, because I would have just random places we could go. It's just like, and I never really had an agenda. I was like, let's just go up there, because compared to what I was used to in the country is like, we could just find something to do. We'll go to the mall. We went to the mall a lot, remember?
Yeah.
Or we would just, I don't know. I was like, let's just drive up there. Let's just do it, and then we can hang out with either one of my brothers if they're free. I don't know. Being that age, just that freedom was awesome. Like being able to just drive and do whatever the hell we wanted. Luckily, my mom was. I mean, this is before tracking and iPhones and all that. She's just like, okay, come back home safe. Tried to.
Yeah,
you make.
No, on you go, Dominic.
Go ahead. I say you made a good point when it came to, I didn't make that connection of the culture shock that we both had going to Southwestern, and whenever I personally feel something and I notice it in someone else, it gives me empathy on how you might feel, and I always try to incorporate that in any new friendship that I make. So maybe that was a piece of us becoming such good friends. I mean, because looking back, is like you're one of the one of the better memories I have of hanging out with in high school. I mean, we had some really, really, really good times.
We had some hilarious stories that maybe aren't like safe for on here, but like I can remember as well. Like you always used to say to me like, and I absolutely loved it, but I was like always fine. Like I had that, like we both had exact same level of adventure. Like we were both just completely open. Like you would be like, let's just drive, and I'd be like, okay, and like we would just go. And I can remember you always wanted to like accommodate me. You always wanted to be like, look, dude, this sucks here. Like the country's crap. Like we need to get back into like Beech Grove because there's always better parties. There's more people up for things. Like,
right.
And I remember you were always trying. And I remember like,
right.
And I love it. Like, I think how many times we did just drive somewhere to get to a party or to get sun, and then it was like, no, nothing's happening, and it was just like, and I always used to just think,
Yeah,
mate,
it was a total gamble.
I just enjoyed being in, like, it was just like, we used to just like listen to Bob Dylan. We used to listen to who was it that sung that Wave Motion Gun song? That song totally reminds me of you all the
It's
time.
Marcy Playground.
We used to just listen to that. I think you're totally playing down as well the River House. Like, that is probably one of the coolest places I've ever stayed.
Oh, really? It really is. It's so the River House. So it's 5 miles off of, so we have a big Interstate 65 that goes through the country, or through like north side of the United States all the way to the south. So it's a big highway and it goes through Indiana. And it was a quick way to get from Indianapolis down to where we were. But 5 miles west of that is in the country and right on the river. So back when my dad, he was kind of looking for a place on the river, and he decided, my mom and him decided to buy this. It was a little shack, like not what you know it when you were there. It was a tiny shack, and he had the idea to build up on it. And he had to go through a lot of permit loopholes because it was in a floodplain. But he did it. He figured it out and built this amazing log cabin looking place with the idea of just being a weekend getaway. But he went all out, and then after it was completed, he decided to move down there and move the family down there when he retired, which totally altered my upbringing in my high school years. And then after that was built, he decided to build a separate house, which is just as big, if not bigger. That was, there was a big. So the house was in like a flood, like right on the river, and the road was a little high, and there's a big cornfield. There's cornfields all over the place. So to avoid the place is in a floodplain, so to avoid the water getting in our house when the river flooded, we built our house up on that was higher than the river. That way the whole cornfield and would have to flood before it got into our house, which actually worked out pretty well, even during massive floods. So these two houses built on, cinder blocks, 10 feet high, and right on the river, beautiful scenery down there. We had a lot of fun. I mean, so like all of my siblings, they all had big families. So all my nieces and nephews, we would all just hang out down there every Sunday. It was the place to go to, hang out with family. We'd have fires, we shoot guns, we shoot fireworks. I mean, also it was awesome. We do float trips downriver, it was a great time, man. And then the parties,
yeah. I'm getting mega nostalgic thinking about it. Like, I absolutely loved it there. Like, loved it. And like the way I'm gonna try and like really describe it to people so they can like almost envision it. Like there was a road that ran like it almost like turned around. If you were imagining you were coming from like the Franklin way, I don't know what that main road. What was that like big road called?
So there's the house was right off 252. That was the highway that you got to our house.
Yeah. So you
and
would
then
like come
you
down.
had.
No, on you go.
Go ahead. When you say the Franklin way, so 252 went all the way to 9, and then that went up to Shelbyville. Franklin way, there's like a country road next to a church. Remember that church that you turn up to go to the Southwestern, the high school? So that's kind of a back way to get to Franklin.
Yeah, yeah. So the way the house was located, like, if you can imagine, if I was stood on the road, you went down like a little hill, and then it was like a dirt track, and then you could go up to the right-hand side, and on the right-hand side, they weren't quite trailer homes, were they? But they weren't like, how do I explain it?
No. Can I share my screen? I might be able to. If I do a screen share, I could show them what it looks like.
Yeah, let's try it. Because it was like unbelievable.
It's
like,
actually
nothing like it in Scotland.
And 3549. Yeah, it's right
And for
here.
everybody listening as well, I am going to go back and talk about having 15 brothers and sisters, or 14 brothers and sisters and being the youngest, because you
Oh
need to
yeah.
see photographs of all of them because they all look the same. Like, you know who a Beeson is. Yeah, oh man, I
Yep.
love them.
There you go.
Ah, so behind the house there was a road, and then you would come down. Remember, I used to always whip your ass at one-on-one on that basketball court.
Shit. Yes, you would, but I was
I don't actually think I
a
did
good
ever beat you.
contender.
I actually don't think I did ever beat you.
No,
Oh man, I
we played
loved it.
we played a lot. Yeah, we had the horseshoe pits right here.
Yeah.
So this is the main house that I was talking about. So the original cabin is this little section here. My dad justified building by calling this an add-on.
That I loved that bit there because you used to all sit there, like, and people would like. The good thing about your family being so big is people wanted to like catch up. People wanted to see one another and hear stories and share stories. I loved it.
Is my See if I can get to the other house. So this is the original, as I said. And then here's the separate house where I lived. So this is where we hung out most of the time.
Yeah,
This is the room and then the ping pong room.
yeah. And you
And
can
then this
talk about
is
that as well because that
kind of
was
the
intense. How much you
walk.
guys all loved ping pong.
Oh, ping pong was a big part of my living down here because I got really good at ping pong. I still am very good at ping pong to this day. At my base, I've only been beaten. I mean, I've been in the military 14 years. I've only been beaten, probably under 15 times. So I played a lot of ping pong, and that's basically was our pastime. It was
That's funny.
awesome. But unfortunately, like you say, this is on Zillow. In 2018, we had to sell this property, so it's no longer in our family, which breaks my heart to this day. But yeah, here's the inside of the ping pong room.
Yeah, I remember it all. Oh man, what a
Bathroom.
place.
And this is it. This is the upstairs. This is kind of where my room was during high school, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, there was a
All my
bed,
brothers,
couch.
they were so mad at me. Like mama, like being the youngest, they gave me so much shit for having my own house and how like so growing up being the youngest, someone moved out of the house every year. But so in the beginning, it was just chaos of people, and so them seeing me is a big chip on their shoulder. I got this own house. I still hear about it to this day. But yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing.
Oh man.
But yeah, that's what.
So like I want to. Can you tell us a couple of stories about what it was like when you started, like youngest to 15 in the house? Like what were the dynamics of that? Like what were the bedrooms like? What was it like when you lived in Beech Grove? How many rooms were in the house, and then how did people sleep?
Yeah, so my Beach Grove house was totally different. It was just a small suburban house. Let's see, it was a 3-bedroom house with everybody. Uh, when I was younger, they did build on out back like a big living room area, but where we all stayed was the basement. We had just rows of beds, rows of clothes, and it was pretty wild. Like our morning routine was pretty chaotic. A bunch of people trying to get ready for school. I just remember waiting in line for the shower, and I'd sleep in like the sock bin, just or like that was the last. Being the youngest, it's like I had no priority, and even if I tried, I'd get pulled. Like either like someone would cut in front of me. Like some of my older siblings got it a little worse when it came to fights and stuff like that, but there was still my brother Stephen. I mean, he beat the shit out of me quite a bit, and he got his ass whooped quite a bit too. So like, shit just ran downhill of ass whoopings. And then if one sibling beat up another sibling too hard, then like it was just. And then when my dad got so frustrated, he would just whip the shit out of both of us. So a lot of times I'd get my ass whooped and then whipped by my dad. So That's the rough part of it. The good part of it is our place was, the place to be. All the friends always came over. My mom was always welcoming to people. She'd feed anybody that came in the door. My mom was an angel when it came to, being so accommodating with everybody and having such patience. She did have her temper, but she was majority patient and loving. So I think that's where we get most of our reason is from my mother. With I don't know, she raised us well, and being the strict discipline of going to church all the time and just all the lessons that come with being in that, being religious. So yeah, our house was never empty. Doors were never locked. People just walked in the door whenever. I don't know. It was different times back then. We in the '90s is what I remember of my upbringing, and I was there only till I was 14, and then till we moved. So, and I just remember riding my bike. I mean, all the summers, right? Just okay. In the summertime, you just left in the morning and just rode your bike and hang out with friends all summer, and just come in the evening. My mom couldn't track us, just total freedom, hanging out in the woods and whatnot. So, like, just learning life, doing whatever you want, just dog eat dog and hang out with friends, and I don't know, it was wild.
So I've turned into a total emotional wreck recently, and it's been like the past year or something, and I can completely confirm that Dominic's mum was an actual angel, and I don't want to talk about her too much because I actually feel like I could cry, because she was like, like,
if you can see it, I got a little shrine for her right there.
She was just
right behind me.
Unbelievable. Like, I can remember we'd show up at like crazy times. Like, I could just show up for like 5 minutes. There would be something made to eat. Like, just, do you need anything?
Yeah.
If you don't, like, just give me, if you need anything, like, all the time. And I can just always remember being like, this is phenomenal. I can remember your dad. I can remember your dad. I only met him a few times though. But what I always found is he was like always interested in what we were going to get up to, but he didn't actually really care. He was interested, like what you got planned.
Yeah.
And then we'd start telling him, and he'd be a bit like
he loved making he loved making conversation, and then making sure we were being cautious. But my dad, he's got a whole nother great side to him of just his ability to teach us, just life lessons. It was rough. My dad was very stern, but he had patience as well, which it required. But my dad and mom had two totally different upbringings. My mom was 3 of 13 kids, so she was used to the big family. My dad was one of 3 kids, so he kind of this grew on him as he started building this family. But he did it with grace as well. And I mean, my mom was the queen of the castle. So anything she said went. I mean, it was really her idea to have that river house and get out of the city. But my dad was a great mentor growing up. He taught me a lot. Taught me how to drive. Taught me, mentored me in any sport I played. So he was great still.
I can remember him giving life advice. Like, I can remember us like sitting out, and he would like kind of give you a bit of advice on things, and he would. The thing that always blew me away with like your dad and even like your brothers when we used to hang out, like they knew more about Scotland than I did. Like they always knew stuff about Scotland, and I was like,
yeah. My mom always talked about about Ireland and northern UK being kind of where our ancestry's from. I mean, they didn't talk about it too much in depth when I was a young kid, but as I grew up and did more like 23andMe and Ancestry.com, figuring out where we all came, it kind of made me more interested in kind of doing research on the culture and kind of where we all came from. And all my other siblings and dad, they were all kind of like that.
Just interested. But they're like, all of you guys are clever as well.
Yeah, just interested.
All of you guys are clever, and that's something that, like, I guess I want to kind of talk about Dominic from like a big family, went through that, We went to the same high school together.
Mm-hmm.
What happened, like, after high school? Where did you go to college? What were the steps from that? And then, can you talk a bit, like you mentioned there, you've been in the military for 14 years. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah. So being the youngest of 15 kids, and my parents being older when I was kind of coming out of high school, they were a little checked out when it came to like planning for. They were kind of, once you're out of the house, I mean, they give you some guidance, but I was kind of on my own when it came to deciding what I wanted to do. Luckily, I was able to learn from mistakes of 14 other people and seeing it firsthand where they're at, you know. So, and I had two of the greatest mentors were my brothers, Mike and Patrick. Both of them, you know, went to college, did student loans, and were heavily in debt. And that affected them as an adult as I was coming out. So I kind of learned from that. And so they kind of helped me strategize on what I wanted to, or of how to get my degree and figure out what I wanted to do. So my brother Mike was in IT at IEPY, and my brother Pat was starting to get into IT, working for defense contractors, and I was just seeing like their job seems pretty cush and they make pretty good money. And looking at where IT was in 2006, 7, and 8, the writing was on the wall to where like job security, there's going to be some job security in IT. So that leaned me towards like, okay, that's what I want to do. I'm going to figure out how to, and then now I had to figure out how to pay for it. And during high school, I worked at the Edinburgh Outlet Mall. I worked as a shoe salesman. That's kind of my first job. When I was 16, I just kind of job hopped from different shoe stores. So I was making okay money just to pay for gas and a little bit of savings. Like I could save up just a little bit enough. And so and then there was Ivy Tech in Columbus, and I saw they had an IT program, and I knew my goal was to get a degree from IPY, a Purdue degree. But so I knew that Ivy Tech, I could take all the general education classes, and that would all transfer up to IPY. And tuition at Ivy Tech was half price compared to what it was at IPY. So I was like, okay, I can just live at home, so I don't have those expenses. I can work at the Edinburgh Mall, and then tuition each semester is only $1,200. So I feel like I was like, okay, I could come up with that working enough. So when I graduated, I started Ivy Tech in fall 2008, working I was an assistant manager at a place called Shoe Outlet at the Edinburgh Outlet Mall. Did that. I did that again in spring, and then now I started to strategize on how I can't afford tuition at APY. So I started doing some research. Four other of my siblings were in the military. I had a sister that went to the Air Force. I had two brothers that were in the Army, and one brother that was in the Air Force. And I all through high school, I was like, yeah, Air Force. I was kind of leaning towards that way. But in 2006, my brother got shot in Afghanistan. He was 10th Mountain Division Infantry, and he got shot in the leg. And that kind of shocked me a little bit when it came to joining active duty. So I was going to join right out of high school. That was going to be my path, because that was, how everybody, because after high school, they would get the post 9/11, or after they get out, they would have full benefits of free college. But going back to strategizing what I wanted to do, after 2 years of Ivy Tech, I saw the Indiana Air National Guard, and I was like, oh, I could go to boot camp, go to tech school, pick a job that's in IT. So that's something I want to do. I could get free experience, free certifications. They would pay for my school, and they would pay for a place for me to live. And all I have to do initially is go to boot camp, go to tech school, and then back to 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. I was like, wow, that seems like a pretty good deal. So in November 2009, I went down there and raised my hand, enlisted as an airman in the 181st Intelligence Wing down in Terre Haute, Indiana. Then that following spring semester, that was my first semester at IUPUI, and I was eligible for, it's called the National Guard Supplemental Grant, and they paid 100% of my tuition, even before I went to boot camp, which is awesome. And then in the summer of 2010, I left for boot camp, and did that was 8.5 weeks in San Antonio, Texas. It was pretty nerve-wracking, heading down to like the total unknown of like, that was when I was like, okay, life's about to begin right here. It's like I'm on my own, and it truly was that moment of getting on the plane. I've been fully independent of anybody. I never needed really my parent. Well, I did move back home for 2 months, but besides that, pretty independent, which is the best decision I ever made, was joining. So after boot camp, went to tech school at Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi. Went to client systems technician course, which was just like IT. And then after that, I came back home, did on-the-job training for several months. Then I just kind of took it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a little break. And so I was back home as a civilian. I moved back to my parents' house for 2 months. And then the Air Force had a full-time position, and then I did that for 6 months. And I think I did that for 6 months, and it started in March 2011. And then I think around that fall, you came back.
Yeah.
You came in fall 2011, right? I remember seeing you.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, I just turned 21, and during tech school, I turned 21 in tech school, which was near, kind of going all over the place, but it was near New Orleans, and I got to spend my 21st weekend in New Orleans, which was pretty awesome. But fast forward to what I was talking about, 2011, I got a DUI driving, so that kind of checked my reality on, okay, yeah, 21. I just remember going a little crazy, partying a little too hard, and I think you were over here when I got that DUI. I wasn't with you. I was partying in Bloomington. I was driving to Terre Haute, and I blew a .08, which was very low, and I actually got dropped to reckless driving. But yeah, but moving forward, I came off orders and then got my own place in Indianapolis, and got a roommate named Sean Mattingly, and I started going to school at IUPUI, and I was able to the Montgomery GI Bill was paying for my housing, the grant was paying for my school, and I met my wife at the time during that period, and I didn't have a license, but I had to figure that out, and then I was able to get that back after a few months, so thank God. But it just kind of took off from there, and it was a rough patch of learning how to be an adult on my own, and then I got lucky and I got a job out in Virginia working for a contractor for the Marine Corps at Quantico, and that was like some serious money too. Like, I was only 23 years old, and I was with my girlfriend for 8 months at the time, and I was like, hey, you want to move out to Virginia with me? She was like, it was a big choice for her. So she decided to do it, and we packed our bags and moved out to Virginia in January 2013. And then I worked out there. I worked nights. It was kind of rough. Worked midnight to noon. It was my shift. It was a very bad shift. But did that for a year. Doing, it was kind of my first big boy job, working on my own for the Marine Corps. I learned a lot. And then I decided to, after a year of doing that, decided to move back home and finish my degree. And I was a lot more financially stable at the time because I made pretty good money working out there as a contractor, and was able to get an internship at Simon Property Group, which was like $15 an hour. But it was enough with my benefits. It was able to pay the bills and finish school out. And I knocked school out, just graduated December of 2014. I got a bachelor's degree from the Purdue School of Engineering Technology. Totally paid for, and I was debt free. So I accomplished my goal, and I got hired on at Simon Property Group full time as a network engineer, and did that for 5 years, and then got laid off during COVID because they shut all the malls down, and so I kind of job hopped, kind of speeding through it. There's a lot more details, but I don't think just kind of went from there to where I go. I just went on orders a lot, and then I got a job with General Dynamics working for at Crane Naval Base in southern Indiana. It's like a massive base in southern Indiana. And then after that, I got my current role, which I work for Raytheon, and doing network defense, and I work from home 100%. So like this is my work outfit. I just been doing this working from home since, basically since COVID, unless I'm doing military stuff. That's kind of like a speed through where I came now. There's a lot of more details of other stuff if you want to talk about, but that's kind of a long, quick overview.
It's again, like, there's a lot of differences, like, culturally, the UK to the States and that, but for people listening, like, what Dominic does now, he has to actually let them know that he's a way to speak to someone from another country. Like, he has to let them know every time we talk. He says, "I've just spoke to. I guess you'll probably have to put my name, where I'm from." Like, probably, do you have to touch on like reasons of conversation? That I don't even know if you can talk about that. Like, I don't know.
No, just like if they're basically worried about like if you're interested in digging for information that I have, or any blackmail or any of that stuff. So nothing I'm worried about. It's just kind of standard policy.
He has to declare that, and I think that's kind of cool. It always makes me laugh that you have to do that. And another funny thing for everybody listening, right? You probably better tell Dominic is intelligent, and he remembers like everything, dates, places, like he just remembers absolutely everything. And it's funny hearing him talk so professionally, because genuinely, me and Dominic we were just silly, like just silly together all the time, always laughing, always joking, always like mischievous. For anyone that's ever, like, I've told this story, and I tell a couple people, like, one of my favorite things to do with Dominic was chase girls. Like, that was definitely like our neutral ground. Like, that was our funniest thing to do. And I honestly, for me, I had the accent. Like, I always, like, my thing was like I would just like go up and like make sure that they knew I was from somewhere else. Whereas Dominic, because he was American, he's handsome. He's a handsome lad. But Dominic's ability to speak to people is like second to none. Like, I've never met anybody that has this, like, it's not even like arrogance, it's not self-assurance, it's just this ability to talk. And do you think that comes from all the brothers and sisters?
I do. I think being the youngest, just anybody in our family kind of has that authenticity when they're having conversation, and actually listening, seeing where people are coming from, understand, adapting to any type of environment, and for me personally, I was unable to talk that much growing up, or I got cut off, I would say, a lot growing up. So that kind of made me a better listener. I just kind of shut up and listen. And then what that's done for me is allowed me to, I think when you're talking to somebody, really listening to them and understanding their point of view, it does multiple things. When you're listening and then you say it back to them, it tells them you care what they're saying, and it opens up the conversation for a better flow, So these are things I've kind of been able to describe recently, but growing up, I didn't really understand it, but I think that's what it is. I could be wrong. Like, I'm always learning. I always have self-doubt. Always, I'm never going to be the one that says I got it all figured out, because I don't. But I think it's that eagerness of curiosity, and I think every person I talk to, I learn from. So I think the the growth of that, and it makes it easy to have good conversations, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I
build
think it's hilarious.
relationships.
100%. 100%. I think it's hilarious now that like pretty much all our stories are around like being some form of intoxicated, chasing
Yeah,
girls, staying out later
think
than we
I
were
think
supposed to.
think a lot. We definitely had a culture of drinking alcohol at a young age. I mean, it's just the youngest five in the '90s, you know, in South Side of Indy, kind of the rap and ghetto, and that was kind of the cool thing. That's what attracted the girls. And when I think of like culture and what's hip, it's always what girls are kind of attracted to, and the guys just lean towards, you know, whatever that is, you know. And in the '90s, it was like just, you know, kind of hip hop music and being kind of a thuggish. But that was Indianapolis. Going to Southwestern is totally different. It was more, my tractor's cooler than yours, or you know, it's just, you know, you got some of those people, and that was a big. That's one thing that sucked about going to Southwestern is the amount of girls. They were all had boyfriends.
Yeah.
So when I was at Southwestern, all these girls, any girl I tried to flirt with or mess with, I had some boyfriend talking shit and wanted to whoop my ass. So that was another thing I had to overcome in high school. I mean, I did get beat up a couple times, but I held my ground on a few of them because even though they had boyfriends, these girls still like old Dom.
They did. The girls always loved you, and I know that that's why you've got such a beautiful wife now, because you are punching. And do you know what? I don't know if you
She's
know.
gorgeous.
I don't know if you can. I don't know if you remember how that all came about. Like what was like the love story behind that? Was there a romantic one, or was it
So,
just Dominic laying on the Dominic charm?
so yeah, I sped through this earlier, but in February 2012, I just moved to Indianapolis. I had an apartment with a roommate, Sean Mattingly, and the Super Bowl was in Indianapolis that weekend, and it was February 4th, 2012, that weekend. And me and Jeff Pence and we were all downtown partying during the Super Bowl weekend, and then it was just too crowded, and we're like, let's get the hell out of here. So we went to a local pub near my house, and that's where I met Kay. She was talking to someone I knew I partied with at a college party or something, and I went up to talk to him, and I was like, oh, hey, I'm Dominic. And then after that, we exchanged numbers. We went on a couple dates afterwards, and we just never stopped texting. Like, she came over a lot, and we just hung out nonstop. Went on several dates, and then 8 months later, like I said, was like the turning point, or like, you know, I'm moving. Do you want to go? And she could have stayed and said, she could have stayed, and that would have been it. But she's like, nope, let's do it. She fucking moved out to Virginia with me, took a total gamble, picked up her whole life and moved out there, and we had a great year. And then when we moved back, we got an apartment at the same apartments I did live in, and then we were roommates. And yeah, when we moved out to Virginia, we've been roommates since. So when we got married, and
keep going.
So I proposed in March. Yeah, I proposed in 2015, got married in 2016, had our daughter in 2017, and then had our son in 2020. We bought our first house in 2017. So, yeah, from 2014 on up, it's been progression. Like, I don't know what it is. I didn't have like my goal. I wouldn't say it wasn't, but I didn't not want it, but it wasn't like I need this, but to have a family and kids, but it's just how it worked out. And it has its hard moments, but I love it. You know, I think it gives me real meaning in life. To raising kids has been the best thing so far, like meaningful thing I think I've done so far.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's not easy. I mean, especially I didn't really talk about this, but I lost my parents in 2017, 2018, in the middle of all that transition in life, so that was very difficult kind of dealing with. And then Kay actually lost her dad a week before my mom passed. So we're having these life-changing events of buying a house, getting married, having kids, um, and our rocks and mentors have both passed away. So and then luckily I have all my siblings, but still, like, we're all adult orphans now, and those days of everybody hanging out on Sunday are over. There's no neutral ground. We had to sell that house I was talking about. So it's been a rough transition, and then COVID happened, so like I got laid off from Simon when my wife was 8 months pregnant. I mean, all this stuff I think overcoming challenges is what makes or breaks you,
Yeah.
and that life is all about challenges. It's gonna happen. It's how you deal with it. It's kind of the mentality I have is how you react, who do you reach out to, how do you treat people during that, But I don't know. I just went off on a tangent, but
No,
I was just kind of
mate.
reflecting on talking about it. It's like, man, it's been nonstop. I think I'm finally in a place where we're starting to level out. The kids are in school. I've had this job for a year and a half now. I've transitioned in the military, so I didn't talk much about that. Going from doing IT stuff, now I'm in a leadership position. It's called a first sergeant. So what a first sergeant does in the Air Force is you're in charge of morale, welfare, anything you're the enlisted advisor to the commander. So anything enlisted issues when it comes to health, morale, welfare, recognition, morale events that, organizing stuff to, boost people's, status of living and, any of that. And I do it part-time, but at the same time, throughout the month, I still have to connect with everybody. But when I go to drill, I know shit. If people mess up, I got to discipline them. If they do well, I got to make sure they're recognized, which is kind of opened my mind and made me, it's gotten me more in that leadership level, and I love it. It's with my personality and, like you were talking about, being able to talk to people. I think I fit right into this role, and where people feel like I'm approachable and they can come to me with some issues they have, and I'm able to help them out as much as I can.
What are, like, since that's now like your job, like,
Uh,
what are then some like key things that you would say, like, just say like it's someone that's morale's pretty low? What are some of the key steps that you would recommend to building that up and making themselves feel a bit better? And it doesn't have to be just through the military. I just mean like day-to-day life. If someone was just sat at home now
yeah.
listening to this.
Well, yeah. Not sure. So my book right here, he's kind of a controversial figure and on the left, but Jordan Peterson, I read his book. So, like I said, I was diehard Catholic growing up, but when I turned 18, the kind of hard-nosed, you have to go to church, I kind of rebelled away from that, and I kind of lost my spirituality in the Catholic Church. Haven't really followed or been a practicing Catholic, but that kind of made me feel a little lost when it comes to spirituality. But once I read 12 Rules for Life, it kind of brought me back, not the practice of Catholicism, but the lessons of Catholicism. Like the Bible has real lessons in it that are important. I don't take it literally. I take it as these are stories that have been passed forward from thousands of years for a reason. Like there's meaning
Yeah.
behind them. And then also just taking accountability and self-responsibility first before you bitch to the world of problems going on. Like, is my house clean? Am I going to sleep on time? Taking control of things I can control, not what other people can control. I think that is, whenever I talk to people with a problem or the morale is low, I talk to them on what time are you going to bed at night? Are you on a regular schedule? Like, these are foundational things. I think if you just go to bed on time, drink plenty of water every day, get some form of exercise in, go walking, do 5 push-ups. Just once they have that baseline, like, come back and talk to me if you've done it, and see what different. Fuck it, if you're just try it, like, and it doesn't have to be. You don't have to be a gym rat. You could just the most important thing I preach is consistency. Is get a habit of doing something. And I say these things like I do everything. I struggle with it as well. I have my periods of being lazy or staying up late, binge watching shows, having maybe too many drinks here and there. So I'm not perfect, but this is just things I strive to do. Just having that knowledge is so important, to be like, oh, I feel like shit today. I know, because I'm not doing what I know I should be doing. Every person has two people in their mind, and what person you're going to be today. And that's a daily struggle, man. It's a daily, like, every day, who am I going to be? It's like, am I going to be the person I aim to be or not?
Yeah.
So it's like, I kind of talk about that to answer your question. That's kind of the avenue. It depends on the person, on what avenue I go or what they're struggling with, but it's just kind of a broad thing.
Because so many different people do listen to this, I just wanted to be broad. Like, I think trying to get too specific without actually having enough context, it's really difficult to, like, get into it. So here's one that you can maybe give like a bit more of, like, your own personal opinion on. What do you think takes to make a good leader then?
Understanding. So in any organization you're a leader in, understanding the mission of the organization, understanding the people in your organization, their different backgrounds, their different personality types. That's a huge thing that a lot of leaders don't understand, is people have different personality types. And you have to, just because this guy's doing so well in this aspect and this guy isn't, it doesn't mean he's bad. It's just maybe he's being presented the information in a way that's a little more intimidating to him, or he's an introvert and he doesn't like doing it that way. That's when you have that open dialogue of, okay, let's chat. What are your goals in here? Making sure a leader understands everybody under them. And once a leader understands a person's background a little bit, what motivates them, then you can alter your leadership style to figure out the mission of the organization and how they can help achieve that. So I think that's, having a leader is connecting that gap of mission to what this person is capable of. So, and sometimes you just have a bad egg, and that's where that back and forth conversation comes in.
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
And having like a layered structure down, and so having that layered structure, like in the military, it's really, really important. Our NCO core, our chain of command, not having too many people under you, to where there's a void in leadership, mentorship. Make sure everybody has a mentor. All these aspects I think are really important. That way they if they have issues, they have someone they can go to. You're not too busy to hear them out. A lot of organizations mess up like that.
Yeah. So I like talking about, like, leadership then, right? I think it must have been, so the last time I seen you was when I came for Adam Blackburn's wedding, right? That must have.
Yes. Yep.
That was the last time I was there, yeah. And I remember the time before
20.
that.
Yeah.
I think it was like 7 years ago.
I think it's 2011 when I got in trouble.
Oh, was it?
So you came back in 2009. That's when we had a really good time.
Yeah, because it was 2007.
We hung out a lot.
2009, 2011. Yeah, because it was every 2 years.
I I think the summer after graduation we hung out a lot, and then you left, and then came back summer 2009. And that's when we went to the Blink concert. That's when I worked at the lifeguarding. You know, we got hang out. You know, that whole world.
Yeah.
Um, and then you came back in 2011. Came back in 2011, and then you came back for the Blackbird wedding, and like might have been
It was
20. I forget what year that was.
well, it was 2011 when I came back, and like our entire relationship had been built on just going out drinking, trying to chase girls, just having a laugh. Like that was it. It was just let's have as much fun as we possibly can.
Right.
And I remember when I came back 2011, and you were just like, so what like we were kind of laughing, joking, doing our thing, and then we like sat in the car for a bit, and you were like, so what else have you been up to? And I was like, mate, just exact same thing back home. And I remember you saying to me, man, you need to get a life. Like I don't think those were your exact words, but like
Yeah.
it was like along those lines of
Yeah.
like because you'd been going to school, you'd been like trying different jobs. I just had a bar job. I was just like pretty much doing the exact same, like I was just doing the exact same things here. Just, and I remember you saying to me, "You need to get a life." And because I had enough like respect and loved you as much as I did, I was like, "He's not saying that to be a dick. Like this is
Right.
obviously something that
Yeah.
I need to do." And I can remember I went back and then started to like take steps to make things happen. I actually think not long after that, I decided to go to college myself. I started like the kind of
Nice.
personal training career thing, and it is thanks to you. Like I can remember like going out there just planning purely to just do the same thing we've been doing since we were like 17, 18 years old, like 5, 6 years later, and then you were like, no, I think you need to get something, and that like
Right.
I remember that
I mean,
conversation.
I, well, I think at that point I just got back from boot camp and tech school, so I had that a little different of a mentality after that. That kind of changed me, helped me a little bit, disciplined me a little more. I still love partying, don't get me wrong. You know, like I said, later that year I got in trouble. Um, but yeah, just having a goal, man, having an
Yeah,
aim. I think being aimless is the biggest struggle with young adults because you're gonna be where you're not gonna go anywhere. You know,
yeah,
having somewhere, even if it's not something like just have throw something on the wall and then try to achieve it because the journey there. I didn't want to be a first sergeant. Someone asked me, I was like, okay, I bet this journey. When I signed up to be my thoughts were, I bet this journey will get me somewhere. Like it's not something I want to be, and it really has. The journey getting there, because like getting the degree, my graduation date wasn't meaningful. I mean, it was meaningful, but like it's like what now? You know, it's like there wasn't some big party and life, you know, where life is going to be easy afterwards. It's like what
yeah,
now? You know, and when I think back at college, I think the best parts was the journey there, my education, the things I learned. I think that's the real meaning is the and it gives you meaning. Like I say that word a lot, but I think it's important for people's happiness. Like I don't really believe in the word happiness. I believe in the word meaning. Like what are you doing in life that's I think that's what makes you feel good. Um, being lost in time. Like if time takes forever, whatever you're doing, I don't think it's good. But if time goes really fast for you, whatever you're doing is good. You know, I
yeah,
think that's a good aspect that you're doing what you're meant to do, or you feel
yeah,
good about it. You know,
yeah. I've been having a big
and
feeling of
I
that
don't
recently. On you go.
have you. No,
Yeah,
I just those weren't my original thoughts. I just want to give credit. I learned a lot of this from Jordan Peterson and his lectures. You know, listen to and smart people online um, has helped me a lot as well. Yeah, and all those resources are out there.
yeah. That's actually something that I put in my speech at my wedding. Like I'm very fortunate that like all the guys around me, all the guys that I would call friends, I could happily take them to any room, anywhere, and I would sit them in it, and I'd be like, "That's my friend. I'm gonna leave them. You can talk to them," and I know they'd be able to hold their own in some way. They'd be able to hold conversation. They'd be able to say something that was somewhat interesting or worth saying. And that, like, I think by the end of the like that time in that room, that like you yourself, like if I brought you met some of my random, like you would be friends with them. And I think that's
Right.
something that I've tried to like I've really tried to surround myself with people that all the men in my life, I think are like more intelligent, they're cooler, they're approachable, they've got advice. They'll tell me when I need to like fucking wind my neck in or like buck my ideas up, like you did, like you said. You were like, man, you need to get a life. And I remember, like, honestly, I'm pretty sure that is what you said. You need to get a life, but like if we were to say it now, you would probably have told me like
I don't
find some
personally
meaning.
recall that, but all right.
But that's the thing, like it's like it will have been just a throwaway statement to you. But I can remember you being a bit frustrated because I was like, just the same thing, like just drinking, chasing girls, like working. And I remember you being like, you need to get a life. And I like now I think you would have told me like get some meaning and like
Right.
do something. And honestly, like
Right.
I thank you, like because that it impacted me. That conversation when we were sat in your car, you just looked at me and you were like angry, and I like felt like I'd let you down. Like it was like, fuck, like if I don't do something, like what do I talk to him about? Because he's gone through this with me before. Like I need to bring something new to the conversation. I need to have like this relationship needs something to grow. I'm just staying where we were. And honestly, like, and I don't know, like, you probably don't, like, you don't remember it, but it was important to me, and that's the kind of friends I want. I want friends that'll tell me, like, when I need to be able to do things. But yeah,
Right. I
I,
appreciate you saying that. I hope I had a I I hope I have good impact on people in my conversations. That's my aim when I talk to people. So I appreciate it. Appreciate you saying that.
no, we did massively. Like that conversation could have been a turning point in life. Like I'm never gonna know because I actually did come away and then tried to do something. But yeah, and it's interesting as well that you're saying that like finding meaning. Like recently, I've been like unbelievably busy. Like I wake up at 5 in the morning, and like tonight I don't finish work till 8 o'clock at night. But like I just looked at the clock there, and it's 5 at my time, and
Hmm.
it's gone like that. Like the day is just gone. Like the minutes are filled, the hours are filled. Like I
Right.
have to do stuff in that time, and it's like there's deadlines to each day, but there's not enough time in the day. So
Right.
for me, the work's never done. Like everyone's like, oh, you get the work done, you go like my work's it's not going to get finished. Like I've got to
Right.
go, I've got to do my best. It starts again the next day, and I do it. And like for some people, they'll be like, that would drive me insane. But I love it because it's then there's meaning every single day.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's kind of leading into what I was wanting to say next is I'm super proud of you, man. I follow you on Instagram and see what you're doing. I kind of went through your website. Man, the people's lives you're affecting, it's not only is going to impact you positively, it's impacting all these people positively. And the change in their lives is going to impact that threefold. So what you're doing can impact millions of people, and you're not even going to realize that now because you're so focused in what you're doing, and that's so awesome. And that's what personal accountability does to each individual. Just taking stock in your what's going on here is more important for the impact of other people's lives than bitching at the world and why is this wrong. So what you're doing, man, I just want to say I'm super freaking proud of you. It's amazing, uh, the impact you're having.
Man, it means the world. It does. And I don't want to sound like the Messiah or like the chosen one or like I don't. But just now, I'm not even like considering myself. Like I am putting everybody before me. And I think like
That's awesome.
with that sounding like so like giving, it's very selfish because it just makes me feel good. Like
And that's
completely
that's that's the beauty of it.
giving myself like completely like this will come out in a couple of weeks. I'm in the process of taking over a gym. I'm gonna have my own facility. And the thing is, like I'm saying, I'm gonna have my own facility. What I'm doing is I'm taking on the burden of paying for a facility to give to people. Like I don't want it to be seen as mine. I want people to know that
Mhm.
they've got a place, a safe place to go to train, uh, to take the first steps in a fitness journey. And I don't want it to be like people keep telling me I've got to have my name above the door because I've created such a good brand with the personal training that'll sell it. But I don't want it to be my gym as such. I want it to be the clients, the members. I want it to be that when they come in, they
Mm-hmm.
feel like they've influenced the place, and the effort that I'm having to put in to make this happen. I'm not, and I don't want anybody to be like, oh, poor you, or like, oh, good job, high fives and that. Like, I'm not doing it for that. Like, I'll know
I
it's
think that's
paid off.
I think that's a good way to build a community rather than a gym, is what that way of thinking. Like
Yeah,
having your members have an effect on what it looks like. Because if they have a piece of, where they're going to spend a lot of their time, they're going to feel more at home and more a community. So I think that's a great idea.
and that's why I asked you, like, what makes a great leader? Because I was like, I have to be the leader here, but I need to make sure I do a good job with it.
Right. And I would come up with a mission statement and take input from all your members. Make it ask them, what do you want this mission, what do you think this place's mission statement should be? And then just take that advice and form one. And what that does is, going back to what you asked me, what makes a good leader, is understanding that mission. And that gives you something on the wall to look to. Like at any moment you're having a trouble deciding what to do, you look at that mission, and that gives you some guidelines on where to go.
I like
I
that.
think mission statements are really important.
I like that. I like that a
But
lot.
an input from people, because if they have an input, they have more at stake. They're more on board with that mission.
Yeah, you want them to have some sort of skin in the game, don't you? Like they feel like they're in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. I learned that from a book I highly advise reading, is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I forget who writes it, but I listened to it on Audible.
I know.
That
I
was
know.
another game changer. Yeah.
I'm just writing it down.
Yeah.
I know it.
12 Rules for Life, Jordan Peterson, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. I know that's it seems like an outlier, but it really shows you how bad it can get when it comes to not taking personal responsibility.
So you said 12 Rules for Life, 7 Habits of the Highly Effective People, Rise and Fall of
The
Third
Rise
Reich.
and Fall of I think everybody, I think that's a must read if you haven't. Just understanding the evils in this world, because no matter what evil, there is going to be evil in the world. And the 20th century, man, there's plenty of that, and it's important to not forget the lessons learned of that,
Yeah.
And I believe it was allowed to happen because people didn't take personal accountability. That's just my personal opinion on it.
Yeah. 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 Hey Dominic, I know how busy you are. I know you had to schedule me in, right? I finished this podcast, and
Right.
I'm gonna have to get you on again because I
Yeah,
could, and
for sure.
I'm actually trying to think now as well when I can book flights out to come see you, because it feels like way too
Oh,
long,
yeah.
but it doesn't feel like any time at all.
Yeah, definitely
Um,
give me a heads up. I want to make sure I block out time to where we have days to hang out.
yeah, yeah. Okay, right. I finished the podcast with the same question for absolutely everyone, and it's a deep one again, but you've maybe kind of already answered it in ways throughout the episode. What do you think some of the traits are to make you a good man?
Yeah, I mean, just take care of the people around you. Be the, you know, a lot of people, just be the rock for the people around you, especially in hard times. If you see people struggling, reach out. Say, hey, don't just say, if you need anything, hit me up. Say, be specific to what you're able to do. Like, hey, I'm able to do this for you if you need, or I'm able to do that for you if you need. I think being more specific allows them to reach out rather than anything. It's a little broad. If you ever notice, if you say that, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to reach out.
Yeah.
Being available to people. Just try to be nice to people. I mean, I say all these things like I got my stuff figured out. I just want to remember, like, I'm daily struggling too with all the things I talk about. Every day I wake up. So don't feel like if you're listening to me, like, wow, like, no, I'm not perfect either. It's a daily struggle every morning to be the person who I aim to be. But having that aim helps guide me to be there. So yeah, I think having an aim, somewhere to move, to strive to be. Because if you don't, that daily struggle, it easily just gives the decision to have an easy day, which I found many days, many weeks, many months of, and it's a downward spiral. But that's all I say about that.
Hey, that's perfect. Dominic, I really appreciate you coming on. Everybody's heard me tell stories like here. They'll realise now why I love you so much. They'll realise why I talk about you so much. But mate, send my love to your family. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop recording this. It'll cut us off, but we'll still be able to talk, okay?
Okay.
Right. Thank you so much, Dominic. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting on here. I definitely want to get you on
Thanks,
again
Aaron.
to talk and tell more stories.
Definitely.